Hello, and welcome back to Gemma Movie Recap channel. Today we're going to tell you the storyline of a movie called Uncharted, from the year 2022. The movie is adapted from a video game with the same title. It tells us about the journey of Nathan Drake as a treasure hunter, fighting against another treasure hunter in an expedition, while also looking for his long-lost brother. So, without further ado, let's get straight to the video. The movie starts in 2007, where a 10-year-old boy named Nathan Drake, who was breaking into the Boston Museum with his older brother, named Samuel Drake. They intended to steal an original map of Ferdinand Magellan's expedition, because the legends say that the expedition was aimed to find hidden treasure. They were sure that they were the descendants of Sir Francis Drake, the treasure hunter, and were born to be one. But unfortunately, their attempt was caught by the museum's guard, which then Nate and Sam were taken back to their home, at the St. Francis Boys' Home. Because Sam has been caught 3 times, the nun then handed Sam over to be detained. Knowing that, Sam then decided to run away, leaving Nate. He then gave Nate their ancestral ring, and promises his brother that he would come back one day. 15 years later, Nathan was working as a bartender in a cafe, sadly without losing his stealing habit. One night, when Nate was serving a girl at the bar, he was interested in her silver bracelet, and managed to steal it when he was lighting her cigarette. When he came back inside, he was called by a man named Victor Sullivan. Sully invited Nate to come with him on an expedition to find Magellan's treasure, but Nate just smirks at him and refuses the invitation. But after Sully left, Nate realized that the bracelet he had stolen was gone and replaced with Sully's card, and because of that, Nate was then forced to go to Sully's place with the bracelet. There, he saw a lot of artifacts, including the Magellan's map, which Sam and he wanted to steal 15 years ago. Sully then said that he knew Sam because they had been on several journeys together. He also knew about Nate from Sam himself. Nate then asked Sully where Sam was, and Sully told Nate that he had lost track of him for 2 years, after he helped him looking for the diary of Juan Sebastian Elcano, which was the lead source to find Magellan's treasure. And that was why Sully invited Nate on the journey, so that they can also look for Sam in the process. Soon after, Sully gave Nate some information about the expedition, that they need the crucifixes left by Magellan's crew, as it was the key of the treasure, which one of the crucifixes was about to be auctioned the very next day. There was also Santiago Moncada, the last descendant of the Moncada family, who also wanted to have the crucifix. Before the auction, Sully and Nate had arranged their plan, where Nate was assigned to turn off the electricity, while Sully was the one taking the crucifix. At the auction, they met Joe Braddock, a mercenary hired by the Moncada family. Joe and Sully seemed to have known each other, and now they were at the same place for the same purpose. When the auction time came, Nate was at the control room, about to terminate the electricity, but he was caught by one of Joe's men, who has predicted their plans. When Nate faced the guard, Sully seemed to be stalling for time by making bids against Santiago, until they were out of time, and Nate decided to sacrifice himself to distract the crowd. While Sully takes the chance by taking one of the auctioneer's jackets and escapes with the crucifix. Already knowing the plan, Joe then manages to intercept Sully and was about to take the crucifix from him. But then the guards found them, and Sully managed to get away because he was wearing the officer's jacket. After having the crucifix in hand, Sully and Nate finally started their journey to Barcelona. There they met Chloe Fraser, who had the other crucifix. Sully wishes for them to work together, since they need both crucifixes to find the treasure. But it turns out that Chloe betrayed them by stealing their crucifix. Nate and Sully then chased her off, and the chase was finished when Chloe managed to get in her car and was about to leave them. But she suddenly stopped after hearing Sally say that she could never find the treasure without the diary in their hand, and because of that, Chloe was forced to work with them to be able to find the treasure. On the other hand, there is Santiago Moncada with his father in the park. Santiago was disappointed with his father's decision to donate all of their family wealth, because his father thought that Santiago didn't deserve it. He was mad and told Joe to murder his father so that they can start the treasure hunt without anything on their way. From Juan's diary, Nate and his friends were directed to a church called Santa Maria del Pi. In there, they found paths called Hell and Heaven. Because they were instructed to split, Nate then decided to go to the Hell path with Chloe, while Sully was going to the Heaven path, with one crucifix each as their key. Not long after, Joe and her men arrived at the same place. Joe then followed Sully, while her men were after Nate and Chloe. The hell path was directing Nate and Chloe to an underground club. There they saw Joe's men and tried to blend in the crowd to hide themselves. Soon after, they managed to spot the next path behind the bar. Chloe then immediately opened the path, while Nate was facing Joe's men, until finally they managed to enter the path. When Chloe was using the crucifix to open their next path, they were flooded with water and were about to be drowned. And it was Sully's job to turn the key from the other side to save them. But Joe suddenly appeared and stopped Sully. Their fight, of course, took in more time, while Nate and Chloe were slowly drowned. Until finally Sully managed to defeat Joe, and also saved Nate and Chloe to proceed to the next path. To enter the path, Nate and told he had to combine the two crucifixes to open the door. Sully then threw the crucifix to them to open the door. Inside, they found giant urns, which they thought were filled with the golds. But when they broke the urns, it was filled with a lot of salt and the original Magellan's treasure map, which turns out that the real Magellan treasure was located in the Philippines. Knowing that, Chloe then betrayed Nate again, that she hit him unconscious, and went away with the treasure map and the crucifixes. Not long after, Nate finally awakes. Feeling odd about Chloe's betrayal, he then immediately asked about Sully and Sam's past. Sully finally tells the truth, and tells Nate that back in the past, they were once attacked by Joe and her men in an expedition, and he said that Sam was shot dead in that incident, that Sully had no choice but to leave Sam behind to save himself. At the same time, Joe was having a conversation with Santiago, where suddenly Chol showed up to them. Unexpectedly, Chloe joined Santiago's crew. She then gave Santiago the treasure map and started their expedition to the Philippines. In the hotel, Nate finally forgave Sully and decided to continue their expedition with Sully to achieve his and his brother's dream. Eventually, they went to the Moncada's headquarters to sneak into their plane to the Philippines. On the plane, Santiago, Joe, Chloe, and the subordinates were having drinks together while they were on the flight. When Santiago was telling them his life story, Joe suddenly approached him and murdered him. And when all the attention was on Joe, they didn't realize that Chloe was gone. Joe then takes the lead and orders all of the subordinates to look for and murder Chloe. Meanwhile, Nate and Sully, who were hiding in a car's trunk, got out and saw Santiago's body. Realizing about the situation, Sully then immediately told Nate to grab a parachute so that they can escape the plane. But instead of obeying Sully's order, Nate then recklessly shows himself to Joe and her subordinates. He then threatened them to release the cargo if Joe wouldn't tell the truth about Sam. But because Joe wasn't telling him anything, Nate then releases the cargo that Sully was thrown out with his parachute. Meanwhile, Nate was struggling to save himself by hanging on the cargo straps. Unluckily, when he was about to reach the plane, he was struck by a car with Chloe inside. They'd oscillated in the air until finally they managed to reach one of the cargo, opened the parachute on it, and landed on the sea. They then beached on an island and decided to have some rest there while examining the treasure map. Nate was up till late examining the map, while also looking for leads from the postcards his brother used to send to him. He was curious about what Sam was about to tell through the postcards, until he came up with an idea to use their old trick by hovering the postcard over a fire. Then a hidden message slowly appeared, saying the keys are your compass. Nate then pays attention to the crucifix and realizes if the crucifixes were put on the compass roses, the end of both crucifixes were pointing at the same spot on the map. Knowing that, Nate then immediately wrote the coordinates of the spot and went to sleep. The next day, Troll wakes up first and sees the coordinates Nate wrote. She then took the paper and decided to look for the treasure by herself. Nate apparently already expected the betrayal and has left the wrong coordinates on the table and hid the real one for himself. Soon after, Nate then immediately went to the treasure location with a speedboat. Arriving there, he found two ancient ships fully filled with the treasure they were always looking for. There he also met Sully, who turns out was following him, thanks to their connected phone's location. Not long after, Joe and her subordinates also arrived there. Seeing that, Nate and Sully immediately hid in the ship. Joe then ordered her subordinates to haul the ships so that they can take all the treasure inside. When the ships were hauled, Nate and Sully went out of their hiding and attacked Joe's subordinates and took over the Chinook hauling the ship. Seeing that, Joe, who was on the other ship, told her subordinate to chase Sully and Nate. Nate then tried to help by shooting cannonballs at Joe's Chinook. Due to that, Joe was then forced to jump off her ship to the other one Nate was on. Nate was unable to face Joe off and asked Sully for help. Sully then faced a dilemma between saving Nate or to take the treasure. Eventually, Sully chose to save Nate and let his lifetime worth of venture go, because he didn't want to live his life in guilt for the second time. All the golds in the ships now belong to the Philippines, but fortunately, Nate manages to snatch 2 gold bars for them. They then also saw Chloe underneath, laughing at her, thinking how she deserves it after all the betrayals she did. Even though they didn't get a lot of gold, now they are ready to go on their next journey. On the other hand, in a prison, Sam, who turns out to be alive, was writing another postcard for Nate, and the movie finally ends. So if Sam was alive, did Sully hide something from Nate, so that he told the fake attack story to him? What do you think? Maybe a hint for another movie? Drop in the comment section. And what do you think of this recap? Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts on the comment section below. If you have any movie you want us to recap, please do tell us in the comment as well. And until next time.